you start to think about what can I do to make the world a better place for my children when they grow up. And you have this discussion about the environment and what is happening.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Roger Göthberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 133rd episode of the Shipping Podcast. In this episode, you will be able to listen to the Managing Director for MAN Energy Solutions in Sweden. His name is Roger Göthberg. And he's speaking about alternative fuels and how his career has been guided by decisions on how he wants the world to look like in the future. We will learn a lot about the technical aspects of the transition to a carbon-free shipping that we are looking at right now. Please enjoy. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Nice to be here. My name is Roger Göthberg. So that's Swedish. And if you go international, it's more like Roger Göthberg. So we share the same name.
Maybe we should explain that before we continue.
Please go ahead.
We are not related and we are not married.
That's right.
Let's end it with that.
Actually, I am married.
But not to me. So who are you?
Well, I'm a 49-year man, born and raised in the city of Södertälje. So in the hometown of Scania. And at that time, also Saab was there. Been living in Gothenburg for 18 years, married, 3 kids. Been working with MAN for the past 3 years, and originally a mechanical engineer. I started my career working in Scania, working in Saab in Södertälje.
Doing what?
Well, actually, I was building engines because this was in the time when I went to school. So it was temporary jobs, or you did it during the summer break, etc., like that. And when I finished the military, I went back to Saab and I built engines for a period of time, looking for something new, interesting to do. And I came across an opportunity with the oil company Texaco. And this was selling marine lubricants to the shipping industry based in Sweden. So as a young guy, I went there, enthusiastic to start working with sales, and got the opportunity to start. So I did that as a sales assistant, basically being in the office, entering orders, following up with all the supply points across the world. So directly very international, which was a lot of fun, and working towards the shipping industry. And my background is my grandfather. He was a captain from the island of Öland. So my mother was from there. So during when I was a really small child, I was always in Öland in the summer breaks, etc. And together with my morfar, then in Swedish, my grandpa. And he had finished as a captain, so he was heading the port in the city called Mörbylånga at that time.
Is that a city?
Well, no, maybe it's not, but it's actually a municipality. It's one of 2 municipalities on Öland where they produce sugar. And I shouldn't say it was a dying place, but it was more or less sleeping at that time. And of course, that came through the bridge that had opened 1969, and all the shipping traffic, etc., was just ramped down or phased out over the period of time. But that was the beginning when I got a feeling for the shipping industry or the shipping part and the sea as such. So going back to Texaco, I worked there and got the opportunity to become a salesman and take over a bigger responsibility. I later also took over other parts of the region, so Norway, Poland, Baltic countries, Finland, etc., etc. So I had a really fantastic time there for 7 years. And during those 7 years, we also had some changes to the owner structure of Texaco as such. So first thing they did was to merge the shipping department with Chevron. And they called it Fuel and Marine Marketing for a period of time. So it was a joint venture between those two companies. And then eventually Chevron took over everything. So we sold Texaco branded lubricants, but it was a Chevron organization by the end of the time I was there. Now, why did I stop then? So came into this fantastic company, and we really had a very successful time. It was a lot of fun and a young organization as well. But during this time, I met my wife. She's from Gothenburg. And we went back and forth for a period of time. And then we realized, okay, why not move in together? So where do we go? We go to the East Coast, to the Stockholm part, or we go to the West Coast, to Gothenburg. And, she agreed to move to Stockholm, which I think is pretty natural. It's a nice city, so why not try it? You're nodding. Not really. Anyway, we did it like that. So we lived there for 5 years, and then we had a discussion and say, okay, now it's time for Gothenburg. So we've now been in Stockholm for 5 years. Let's go to Gothenburg. So I actually brought with me the assignment, moved it to Gothenburg, and ran it there for a period of time. And then it was just like natural to think, 7 years here. I was quite young when I came into the organization. Maybe there's some other interesting things that I could try. And I've always been fascinated also by the automotive industry from two perspectives. Okay, I like cars and engines. But also it's a very competitive type of business as well. So I was curious to see, okay, I built engines in the past in Saab. Maybe I could do something on the sales side, working for an equipment manufacturer, also toward the car industry. So I tried that out for a period of time. And for several reasons, it didn't work out. So I wasn't there too long. Got the opportunity to start with a company in Värnamo, of all places, called Ravema. And I started there to build up a new business unit, working with metal cutting tools, hand tools, metrology items, etc., for the metal cutting industry then. And this for a German company called Hoffmann Group. So what we did was that we started Hoffmann Group in Sweden. Then we continued into Norway, and then we continued into Finland. So building an organization over a period of time and launching these tools into the market then, professional tools. So I did that for 7 years, which was, again, a lot of fun, a lot of developing, a lot of sales and marketing. And it's 200 kilometers between Gothenburg and Värnamo. So... And we had some kids during this time as well. So it's a lot of commuting, of course, going back and forth. And eventually you asked the question, is it worth it? Is it the right way of doing it when you have young kids at home? And of course, it was not only going back and forth to Värnamo, it was the rest of Sweden and Finland and Norway as well. So no, I started to open up for a new career, and at that time I become, first of all, I missed the shipping part, to be honest, and second of all, you start to think about what can I do to make the world a better place for my children when they grow up, and you have this discussion about the environment and what is happening as well. So this was in the end of the 2000, so 2008, 2009, around there. And an opportunity came up to work with LNG. It was a company called Nordic LNG. It was later renamed to Scangas and is today called Gasum. And at that time, it was a Norwegian company. And they had just decided we want to be a player in the small-scale LNG market. So I came into that organization as sales and business development manager, based in Gothenburg, but the company was actually in Stavanger in Norway. So we started from scratch. We hadn't sold 1 single liter of LNG when I came into the company. We hadn't even finished the liquefaction plant, so that was during construction. And the first period of time, we were out selling PowerPoints. And it's a really funny thing to be out in the market, meeting the biggest of potential clients, industrial clients, selling something which you have just on a paper. So I ask you, Mr. Customer, to evaluate changing your fuel from whatever you had in the past to LNG. And I'm building a liquefaction plant, and I will make sure that you will actually get this fuel. No problem at all. And of course, at that time, there were basically no competition, or very, very limited competition or alternatives. So the customers that got this question, he realized, of course, okay, if you mess up and you do not do this, I will actually stop my production, whatever it is. And that is, you end up in very nice discussions, of course, and also just to understand, okay, how is this pricing mechanism going to work for this fuel, and how is the impact on the environmental perspective, etc., etc. But as soon as we had opened the liquefaction plant and they started to see that, okay, there is actually a product coming out and they can really supply me as a customer, then you started to have a very interesting development over the first 2 years. And then we had 2015, or shortly before that.
That was the time when you could see so many people putting on their innovation hat, because we had the sulfur area here.
Correct.
2015.
Correct. And so that was a driver that we knew already quite early in the development phase, that, okay, this is something that will trigger the marine market. Because first of all, when we started, it was all about the industrial part. We didn't think anything about the marine part, or it was very early in that discussion anyway. But when we approached 2011, 2012, we started to think about this opportunity then, that LNG would be a really good alternative fuel then to comply with the sulfur regulations. And a lot of ship owners were very interested in that, for sure. But it was also quite early in the development, and it takes time to get a feeling that this is really something that I can rely on. And if you say to an industrial customer that, I will supply you at that supply point, that's normally okay, because that supply point remains there always. But when you attract a ship owner with a vessel trading wherever, of course, then you end up in a more tricky situation, of course. Can I really rely on you bunkering my vessel? And I'm not sure that I will trade here over a period of time. I'm doing it now, but I don't know what I'll do in 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And then you had the last point, which was a little bit tricky during that time, and that was, of course, the oil price going down dramatically. So that all of a sudden just changed the way of calculating how interesting LNG as an alternative was then, compared to gas oil as the other alternative then. So it was some rough and tough times, and actually the oil price remained for quite some time. It took years before it really took off. And today, when you look at the market, the LNG part is definitely much more competitive compared to what it was 5 years ago. It's a big difference. Yeah,
I remember also the discussion about the infrastructure on land to be where could you actually fuel your ship. And the politicians had to go along with that as well, because you need permission to build it, you need support to get it, to start up all of that. I presume you need some clients, more than one, to start selling it, and so on. So that was a big discussion going on. But I think that was taken by this EU project, that people realized that we need to do something. And that's how it helped to start.
Yeah, and I think, when you do such a big change, or you ask your clients to do this change, it's a big step for everybody involved, and you cannot just sit there on your chair and say, okay, I expect you to do that change because it's good for you, because we all have to see the same picture and support each other to take the step, because it is an investment intensive thing to do. It costs a lot of money to build infrastructure, and of course the first bricks that you put down is going to be very, very costly, of course. To compete with the oil business at that time where everything was just developed over 100 years, and the cost for the infrastructure part is basically nothing. What is a tricky dialogue to have with people to see that the difference and the opportunity that comes later on then, of course. If you go this route and you think that this is what you pay for the infrastructure part, that will come down substantially over time. But the infrastructure part coming down on the oil business, that cannot happen because it's so developed and so well utilized. So it's a totally different game, of course.
So looking back, what kind of people were the bravest?
I think we were all a bunch of people who were really brave, but quite a few did not succeed anyway because they didn't have the funding. They didn't have the strength to really pull through. And Gasum, with the situation they have today, the old Skangas would never be where they are today if the owners hadn't really seen this coming, that it would take quite some time to arrive to at a positive result, and we are willing to take that investment. But I think initially they didn't think it would take that long, to be honest. But everything comes down, or a lot comes down to the development of the alternative fuel, being diesel in this case. If you would have had another oil market compared to gas, then it would have been faster for sure.
Mm. So vision and passion and all of that.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, definitely. And the LNG, the small scale LNG business, driven very much from Norway at that time, you definitely had a lot of passion. It was people who were attracted to this type of business because they saw that here is something new. I can be an important part in develop this market. And it's not too often you have a chance to do that. So if you have a chance, take it. It's really a lot of fun. But you struggle as well. But I mean, that's part of the game.
So that was 3 years ago that you left that company. What do you do now?
So now I'm with the German company MAN. When I joined the company, it was called MAN Diesel and Turbo. So almost 2 years ago, we changed the name to MAN Energy Solutions. And it very much reflects more the way that we see upon the future and what we would like to do in the market nowadays. Of course, diesel and turbo also shows what we do in many ways. Then it's a lot about diesel engines, and our heritage is very clear in that perspective. Rudolf Diesel was working at MAN when he invented the diesel engine. So of course that is an important part of our history. But the energy solutions is very much what it's all about nowadays. It's not an engine, it's not one propeller. It's about a solution that works together to optimize it and make it as efficient as possible. And then you have to have a solution thinking, and that is something that is really a lot of fun working with, but also challenging, of course.
So how many people work here?
In Gothenburg here, we are approximately 100 people working here. And we have 3 business units that we manage from this side. So first of all, we are a regional responsible for MAN Energy Solutions in Sweden, Finland, and the Baltic countries. And we have different products that we market then in this region. So that's everything that goes into ships. So of course, engines of various types, but also exhaust gas treatments, gearboxes, hybrid solutions, propellers, etc., etc. And then we have an industrial part as well with different solutions into, let's say, refineries, steel industry, and power production as well. And the third part that we have here is we are a product center and competence center for cryogenic solutions. And this is through what used to be Cryo AB, a company that was a part of Linde and AGA before. It was bought by MAN 4 years ago and incorporated into the MAN Energy Solutions portfolio then. So here we are a product center where we basically do everything from designing these systems and manufacturing them and shipping them out, either as a fuel gas supply system to a vessel running on LNG or on land-based solutions as well, as LNG import terminal or bunkering terminal or whatever. So that is very much in line with the MAN strategy for enabling our clients to take alternative fuels in usage then, both in the shipping sector and other sectors as well.
So if we talk about the alternative fuels for the shipping market, what are they?
I think we all can agree that there's a variety of alternatives, and it would be really fun if I can just point at one and say, this is the one that it's going to be. But there is no obvious one, of course. So there's pros and cons with all of these. And of course, as a maker, we look at what we can do from a technical point of view and offer solutions to the market. And then if you take the other step is, okay, what type of fuels are actually available from a volume point of view? Is it substantial volume out there that you can access? And the third part is, of course, is there an infrastructure to be able to bunker it as well then? So all these issues that we had in the past when we started with LNG is also there for the other alternative fuels as well, from different perspectives. And I think this is what makes it so interesting. So how do we take these steps? And what is going to be the solution that the market will go for? And I think today, if you ask me, I would say, okay, we will still have traditional fuels, and we will keep on working with the efficiency of a vessel to reduce the amount of fuel that you're using. I mean, that's the number one criteria for sure. And then starting to blend in green parts of the fuel as well. So you gradually, of course, increase or improve the environmental perspective from that fuel. Gas is for sure, in relation to the availability of gas, I think that's going to remain quite a long time. But we also need to bring in a greener part of it as well, to start to blend it and improve the environmental performance from that perspective as well. And then you have the all the other types of alternatives as well, with the methanols and the ammonia, and hydrogen is for sure a big topic today. And how can we utilize hydrogen? And not only for shipping, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in the industrial market, it's in the automotive market. But the question is always, okay, how green is it? How do you produce this hydrogen then? And how do you distribute it? And in the long run, or in the end, is there a market out there who's willing to pay for it? Because if they're not willing to pay for it, it's not going to fly.
No.
So I think it's really, we are at a stage now where we basically know that it's these 10 types of fuels or whatever that you can choose from. We all know about them, but it's more like we come together in a cluster and decide, okay, we think we should pinpoint this and this and that to see, can we strengthen these 3 or 2 or 1 to take the next step and help each other to be more focused on what we need to develop going forward. Because if we keep all options open, it's going to take quite some time to make a difference.
And then there is the chicken and the egg solution.
Ooh, it was a while since I heard that one. Chicken and the egg. Yeah, what's first?
Yeah,
but that's all again.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking about ship owners. They buy a ship today, or they build a ship today.
Yeah,
and it's going to last for 25 years. They think.
Absolutely.
So who knows what happens with the fuel coming 20 years?
No, I mean, okay, you can do the safe bet and say, okay, there's going to be one type of diesel is going to exist. Yeah, sure. I'm totally positive there's going to be diesel solution in 25 years as well. It's going to be greener, yeah, for sure, but there will be a type of that. And you could also argue that it's very likely that LNG will be there in 25 years. But we keep on adding the greener part to it then. So a bio-LNG and a synthetic LNG is also something that we definitely believe will be a part of what the market is demanding then. And then you have the regulatory part of it as well to increase the pace of change. And that is an important part. We all know what happened with the ECA decision. It has an impact.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy one. And how strict do you want to be and when do you implement it? But you can be sure that the change is not going to happen without it. It's going to be very, very difficult to have just a market demanding it you need the support from also the regulatory part, for sure.
Because we need the change.
We need to change, and I think that's it's not too many who doesn't agree to that we need to do a change. And then you can always argue what type of change and how do we solve that. But it's obvious that in one way or another, you need to be more sensitive with how much energy you consume. That's the number one, of course. And that goes, if it's a fossil one or if it's a green one, you still need to have the concern, do I really get enough value out of the energy that I put into different solutions then? And the greener you can be without killing business, because that's also an important part. Mm-hmm. You cannot kill business because you change too fast. And it's looking at the automotive industry is I think it's quite often relevant. It's different rules and a different game. But I mean, MAN is fully owned by Volkswagen, so for us it's also natural to see what's happening there, and you can see the investment that they are making now towards electromobility. It's like, yeah, that's the solution. We are just moving ahead, and we are investing billions of euros into that part, and it has gone actually quite fast, that switch. But you cannot do it the same way for the shipping industry. It doesn't work. You can do it for short sea. Okay, yeah. Then you can look into battery solutions, and that's all well. And you can have hydrogen solutions for other types of ships, and you can combine them. And I think that's where we are with the energy solution discussion, is that for some vessel it's going to be, maybe you run on LNG and you have that combined with a hybrid solution where you utilize battery and electricity as well. And for others, it's pure battery, or for another one, it's another type of fuel. So it's all about finding this fine-tuning also to offer a solution that works for every single ship owner and trade.
So will the next generation of ships last for 25 years, or will it be changing in that?
I think that's a really interesting question. If you look into the life cycle of everything that we build and use, and then you can say, okay, you use this. If you take a mobile phone, how long do you use that? Okay, so you manufacture that phone and you use it for 1.5 years, and then you throw it away. For a ship, you say, okay, you can use that for 25 years, but do you really need to scrap it after 25 years? Is that a good solution, or should we instead focus on maybe making sure that we could use the vessels for a longer period of time? Because it takes a lot of energy also to produce new. But if we find solutions where we can gradually update or upgrade the vessels as well over a longer period of time, from a sustainable point of view, I think that's something which is relevant to talk about as well.
Going back to your experience from cars, engines at cars, and compare that to what you do today. I mean, car manufacturer, that's not in one place, but at least it's not so many of them. You manufacture your cars and you sell them because your clients are ordering whatever they want. Yeah. But it's not the same in the shipping industry.
Absolutely not.
So what challenges is there?
Yeah, I mean, in the car industry is a lot about standardization, of course. So you and that's the drive to be more cost competitive, of course. The more you can use that engine in this number of different car versions, the lower price it will be, of course. And we're struggling a little bit about this in the shipping industry for sure, because it is quite often tailor-made designs. And you can have sister vessels for sure, but it's not like you produce hundreds of them. It's a very limited series. And I think we all need, as in the business, to see what can we do in order to simplify and to come away from the customization more. But
would we benefit from having a standardization of certain parts of?
Well, I think if you look into there is a scale effect, no doubt about that, absolutely. And I mean, you can see it in the engine part, of course. Yeah, you can produce the same type of engine, and that will be of course improve the competitiveness of that engine. But it's still, the series are still quite small, and it's a lot of customization anyway when you come out to the vessel. That is not. It's not the shelf goods anyway, and we see it also in the fuel gas supply system part here in Gothenburg, where we design that. And you have a tank and you have a vaporizer solution to feed the engine with the gas, and you can say, okay, you must be able to just make that a standard solution. But when it comes down to the end, somebody has drawn the design for the vessel in the beginning, so they will come to us and say, okay, I need this tank size and in that dimensions, and I want to use this engine with that demand then from pressure or whatever. So you still end up in a situation where you custom draw it every time, more or less. And it comes to a cost. If you add everything on, of course, it comes to a cost. Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah, I was thinking about, everything will cost more, and that will be a challenge. As you said, funding for all of that. And so if people can start to think at the other end, what cost can I reduce instead?
Yeah.
That end? I mean, it's an equation.
Absolutely.
Probably.
But I think it's also a positive thing with this, because if you design a car, you're very much steered. Not that I know too much about this, but I'm thinking about it. It's like, okay, you have these components that you add on. It's like a Lego. Okay, so you have that engine, you have those wheels, you have whatever. So you put it together, and that's all of a sudden a car. But when you're designing a vessel, it's much more emotions. It's much more thinking behind. It's much more tailor-made to fit really the purpose that I'm after for this specific vessel. Mm-hmm. But you're not thinking like that when it comes to a vehicle. That's much more simple from a standard
every
solution.
Man I know is thinking like that when it comes to cars. Oh, sorry about that.
So I think we are attracting. You want to have that special edge with your vessel, because you're so convinced that will fit so well into your business model. And then you can always say, but there's some simple vessels where that has a simple tray where it's obvious, but I think it's seldom that we have that discussion. It's always, you find that the special twist to really develop, and that's a good thing, because you develop every time you launch a new design for a ship, I think. But you should still have that smartness to think, okay, what can I standardize while still taking those steps from an efficiency point of view, environmentally, but also, of course, to be able to have as valuable trade as possible.
What are the biggest changes that you have seen during your career when it comes to the shipping industry?
Yeah, it's a few years now. So I started in Texaco 1995, and then it was all about speed. Yep. So you design your vessels to be super fast, and if you use 50% or 60% more fuel, it doesn't matter, because it's time that tells. And did we think about the environmental performance of the fuels? No, we did not. It was supposed to be cheap, and we were selling 500 centistoke fuel, 600 centistoke high sulfur fuel. Yeah, nobody even thought about it, huh? It was just the way it was. So if we then jump to when I started with Nordic LNG, then 2010, and the market was then, of course, much more sensitive and cautious about this high-speed thinking, then, of course. And you had the recession before that as well, and that had a big impact, of course, on the way of looking at this. So maybe it was more driven about the fact that it was too expensive to do it that way than the environmental perspective. But then we've had this development over the past 10 years when you start to think about what impact do I really have, and what do I contribute with from a pollution point of view as well. in my shipping. And we have quite a few ship owners who see this as an opportunity to stick out in a positive way. It's always difficult to calculate, do I gain back that in extra investment that I'm taking in order to be one of the front runners? But there is definitely ones that are taking that risk and move forward. And we should all appreciate that, because they are driving the change. And we need those companies for sure.
Yeah, it's impressive to see them, I think. But also the society has changed during these 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to this discussion we had before we pressed record, when it comes to recruitment. I mean, we got a Greta generation coming up now.
Absolutely.
And we need to think about how can we recruit more people, new young people into our business.
Yeah.
What is your view on that?
I came to this company, and I went to Nordic LNG as well for the same cause. It's to be able to work with something which is fascinating, demanding, international, but where you can also make a difference and make a better future. It sounds big, but that's my driving force. And I know that we have quite a lot of people in the organization in MAN who's working here because they also want to be a part of this. So it's a nice combination of fantastic opportunities with technical solutions that I can play around with. And I can do that with the environmental twist as well. I can be out there and make a difference for the ones using our solutions. And that it's a lot of fun. And we are getting, of course, new demands all the time from the market. And to be able to be a part of their thinking about how they should develop their business in the future is a lot of fun. So the answer to your question is, okay, are you hooked on being a part of making a change? Are you hooked on working with technical advanced things where you can have a saying on where to move? And are you hooked in working towards, I mean, the shipping business is so big, everything just stops if we don't have shipping. If you see that impact and the understanding of how important shipping is, then I think you're hooked.
Yeah, but how do we convey that to them?
I mean, it's to expose people for it, of course. And it's not super easy because quite a lot of people don't see a vessel every day. It's easy for us to say, okay, I mean, we see ships here in Gothenburg every day, so it's a natural part of our day-to-day view then. And then you're becoming marinated in that over a period of time. But it's a good question. I think that we all contribute to this by our enthusiasm working within this business and to be out and exposing that for people. But how we reach them is a lot of things. I mean, with your pod is one way of doing it, which is a very good thing. I wish I could have more good answers to it, but to show enthusiasm and to bring in more people where we work is, of course, a very good thing as well, because people working here, if they enjoy it, will also tell their friends and they will tell their relatives, and eventually it spreads as well.
Yeah, because we have a tendency to speak to each other inside our own little bubble.
We should do it, huh? I think it's really
important. We should speak more outside.
You mean that? Yeah, for sure.
I mean, of course, every company is marketing themselves because they do that to their clients and so on. But I also think that all the companies within the maritime industry has a responsibility to also show the rest of the world how cool we are. Mm. Because this is such an interesting industry and no one knows about us. Hardly.
Well, quite a few knows, but it should be more. It should be more, absolutely.
Yeah, I always think about that.
Yeah.
Why are not more people interested? But I'm also happy to say that I have interviewed some young women coming into the industry, and they are flourishing, in 3D printing. They know all about autonomous ships. They know all about blockchain. They know all about the new stuff that hasn't been here before. And I can't help thinking maybe it's because it's an open area. There is no man standing there who has already started to do this.
Yeah.
So it's open. They can do whatever they want. Not whatever they want, but there is a room for them.
Yeah.
And they are allowed to be themselves and show what they can. And that makes me happy. And it makes me believe in the future for the maritime industry.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a role model growing up?
Well, as I said in the beginning, my grandfather was a captain. He had his own small vessels and wooden vessels, or he had some after the wooden part as well. But he was in a way a role model for me. But I didn't think about it at that time, of course. But he's always been like a star in my thinking, and I was thinking about him yesterday. Actually, he's passed away for many years ago, but all of a sudden I got a smile on my face, and remembering those days where he was like a king in that small society, but very friendly to me and my cousins at that time as a grandfather. So he's a role model. And I actually have my wife as a role model as well, I must say. I mean, we've been together for quite some time, and it's you grow together and you challenge each other and you develop together. We're actually in a tough situation right now with some illness in the family, and it's not all bad. It's also something that you grow from, and you engage each other really to take the fight. And when it comes to looking back into what I've done over the years, it's to find the energy, it's to find the passion. And if you have the energy and the passion and you learn how to do things, well, then you will succeed. It's all about the drive. And this is something which is a lot of fun when you team up with others in the same team and you see the same goal and you go for it. It's really a fantastic feeling, and this is something which I really love doing, and I think everybody loves doing. So,
do you see yourself as a role model nowadays?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Why
wouldn't
not?
say that. No, but I'm just not thinking about it that way. For me, it's about having fun. It's about being able to find energy and to inspire other people to see it as well. I don't see myself as a role model, but I'm happy if my engagement is being seen by others, because that I think makes a difference.
I have started to get used to the thought that other people see me as a role model.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to think that role through.
Mm.
So even if I shared all the views that you have, the passion and to see the goals and to reach that, but if other people see me as a role model, I need to live up to that.
Yeah, that's true.
And if I haven't thought that through, I probably won't.
No, but it comes with a responsibility for sure. I mean, and you're a good example of that, of course, because you expose yourself every time you do this podcast. And if people listen to you over and over again, and all of a sudden you become another person because you say things in a way that they aren't used to, they will realize that, and they will do it quite fast. So of course, the more you reach out to different types of people, the bigger responsibility you also have to be clear with what you say and to be honest. I think that's an important part for me, the honesty as such, because it's very difficult to play a role, and you can do it only for a short period of time. But as long as you do it with honesty, people will feel that as well.
And I think that the voice is really an instrument where you can measure if it's for real or not.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pretend when you are listening to someone.
You're probably right.
Mm. So who do you think I should meet the next? Who would you be interested in listening to?
That's a really good question. In general, I would say, which is a very boring answer, I think everybody has a story to tell.
I totally agree.
So an unconventional one is probably something that would stick out the most. So not the general ones that we would normally think about coming alongside, maybe you should meet with somebody from the automotive industry. Just to how are their thoughts about the future? What do they think about the shipping part? Why not? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, living in Gothenburg, and we hear all about, and I attend a lot of seminars when it comes to the automotive industry, when it comes to both autonomous driving and electricity and all of that. I am always so thrown back by the fact that why don't we collaborate more?
Mm.
We work in our silos, and so do they.
But I think that's it's really a human thing to work in silos. I think it's very easy to just go into your silo or to your box because it's you feel it's manageable then, and you have control over your part. It's a little bit more difficult to think outside the box or outside the silo. But it's when you do that where you create new ideas and really challenge each other. Okay, what can you and me do together to make it better for both? But I find it's easy for quite a lot of people to stay in the box, which is not you've heard it before. It's not a new thing. So you need to find the ones who are more interested in working outside the box, but somebody who's controlling them from inside the box to make it in a reasonable way then.
Yeah, so maybe I should have them on record, the ones I meet when I don't work with the shipping industry, and see how they can contribute. Thank you very much for speaking to me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And buying me lunch.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger, my namesake, but not my relative. Our surname, Göthberg, is not that common in Sweden. And yet, I keep bumping into interesting people who share my surname. It's a small world. I received an email to hello@shippingpodcast.com. It was from Dylan, an Oxford University student who wrote to me that listening to me interviewing Michael Lind in episode 78, where Michael speaks about Port CDM, that is, Port Collaborative Decision-Making Tool. That had inspired Dylan to participate in a technology competition, together with his housemate and other students at the University of Oxford. They called their team Cinderella. How sweet is that? Maybe you listen to too many of my episodes, Dylan. But they developed a tool for predicting ship arrival times based on weather conditions. And they won the competition. I will add a link to the online article of this so you can read it for yourself. The Cinderella team was the only team in the competition working on the shipping industry. And the audience was very surprised and interested in the results. So now Dylan and his mates are planning to continue developing the tool with the aim of trying to launch a startup. Dylan ends with thanking me for an excellent show and says, I thought you might be interested to know. Your podcast is reaching people outside the shipping industry and inspire some involvement. I am in tears. I'm so happy that I have inspired young people to take an interest in the maritime industry, and especially since they had no idea about us until Dylan started to listen to the shipping podcast. This proves me right. I have achieved my goals. Maybe I should stop podcasting now since I have reached my goal. Or maybe not. There is nothing more rewarding and inspiring than to receive feedback like this. Dylan, you have encouraged me to continue making interviews with maritime professionals who speak about their passion for the maritime industry. Thank you. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.